Hi, I'm Stephen. I'm 19. I'm studying at the University of Cumbria in the field of film and television production. I would say I've been interested in this field ever since college, where I went into film studies, where I got to. It was really eye-opening in terms of being able to explore how important the camera is in terms of creating a mood and emotions in terms of the film itself, and not just how important the script is and the directing and the acting and stuff like that. It shows you how important the camera is, and that moves into what I'm doing now at uni, which is my preferred role of camera operation slash DOP, which I really enjoy. And I would say being camera operator has taught me one thing about what's the most important thing in terms of cameras, and that's teamwork. You've got to know what people want from you in terms of what the lighting people want, what your DOP wants, what your director wants, what the actor wants. Everybody's got to know what you're doing, and everybody's got to be on board with it. And if not, then it's not gonna work. And then, in terms of the second most important thing in cameras, and that's obviously knowing the camera. If you don't know the camera, you obviously can't operate it, and then you can't get the best thing, because you can't get its potential out. Every camera is completely different to one another, and every camera has its quirks. Since joining uni, I've had access to about 5 cameras, 4 like handheld cameras, and then 1 television camera. The 700D, the C100, the 5D, and the GH5. The 700D is the camera this is being filmed on right now, and you've got to think in terms of camera bodies, how it performs in low light, how it interprets light, and how clear the image is, because the camera body is the most important thing in terms of how the image comes out. If an image is grainy, it's because your camera settings are all wrong, or it's because of how the camera interprets light in terms of different camera settings. And camera settings are really important in your camera. So if you use your ISO, which is affects how the digital side interprets light, and if your ISO is too high, the digital grain is way too high and it destroys the image. And your f-stop value and your shutter speed. Your shutter speed is how fast the gate opens and closes in terms of the shutter gate in front of the capture gate, which allows how long the shutter gate is open for, to see how much light is let in. And then the f-stop value is how open your iris is. So if your iris is really open, it lets as much light in as possible, and it becomes a much greater image. Not greater, brighter image. If it's got a really small thing, it's better for really overbearing light, so it lets in as little light as possible, so you can capture more overbearing light. And then, in terms of other camera stuff, your lenses are really important. Lower focal length lenses are your wider angle lenses. Your higher focal length are like your telephoto lenses, which are for capturing stuff that's really far away. And they're really important in terms of photography, like wildlife photography and sports photography. Whenever you're at a football game, the photographers there will normally have a telephoto lens, really long and really important in terms of capturing someone running like really far away, basically. And then you've got other lenses. You've got your macro lenses, which are for capturing stuff that's really close up, for really small photography, not small, but really close up photography. So if you want to do a really good close up, get as much detail in the human face as possible, you get a macro lens to capture as much detail in the face as possible. And then obviously your focal length's important in terms of lenses. 18mm to 35mm is normally your wider angle lenses. Your anything higher than a 35 to like an 80mm is the sort of lens you use for pretty much anything, basically. So like 1 shot, close-ups, 2 shots, stuff like that. And then anything higher than that is basically a telephoto lens for really far away capturing. Now, what I'd say is, after uni, what I'd like to get into is obviously a job in terms of camera operating, and I live in the Manchester area, so I'd really enjoy to try and get a job in Manchester, because I know there's a lot of smaller production companies there that need people, skilled people, to work for them basically. And then obviously there are like large companies need media people basically, so I'm bringing up football again, but football teams normally have media employees, people who go around interviewing players, interviewing managers, interviewing staff, and they're really important in terms of getting as much content as you can out there for the company.